The amount of the crowds at these races is crazy. That brings you a lot as well. Especially at this point in the race, I was the last hope of our team. I was the only one left in the running. If I don't do anything then, it's game over for everyone. You should always sprint to the line. The race is never over until it's over. Well, I would never think of anything different. What are you going to do? It doesn't go well, you just throw your hands up and give up. It's not really in the DNA to do that. We fight until the end.
Welcome back to Born SuperHuman. So today I bring on someone that is an up-and-coming already superstar. Try and figure that one out and put those two together. In the world of cycling, there's those that ride, there are cyclists, and then those who are true professionals and still striving for the higher levels. But today's not just about cycling, it's about mindset. What sets us apart, and those lessons that not only apply to cycling and racing and being the best, but also transfer into real life. So with that being said, I'm so excited to introduce Lewis Askey.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, exciting. So we'll start with your most recent success, which was incredible, the Paris-Roubaix, where you finished 13th. But what people may not realize is that your time would have won all races before, from the start in 1896
No
to
way.
incredible.
I didn't realize that. Yeah. It seems to be that all the races I do these days are, we keep breaking the records and we keep going faster. And people, I say older guys, not even the guys so old, but a lot of the guys in the teams are always like, oh, since the last 5 years, the sport has just come on so much. It's a different ball game now to what it used to be. However, I only turned pro at that time, so I've only been racing in a different ball game. So maybe I was born at the wrong time.
Yeah, well, you got the best years ahead of you. Let's before we get into the racing though, and racing for NSN team and living the dream so many people have in cycling. Let's go back to you as a kid. What was your first bike, and how did you get into cycling?
I was on bikes from super young age. I was without stabilizers before I was 2. I think I did my first race. I was like racing at maybe 4 years old, 4.5 years old. I was my first bike was I actually don't. It was a black. It was tiny little black bike that I remember. That had stabilizers on, and that's the first bike I had the stabilizers taken off. Then I had a little BMX, and then this BMX is what I first started racing on. So I did cyclocross actually to start with. Was my first races. So where I live is Cannock, yeah, where I grew up was Cannock Chase, which is actually where they had the Commonwealth Games mountain bike race from when the Commonwealth Games were in Birmingham. And it's an area of like outstanding natural beauty, just big forest, loads of mountain bike trails. And that's what, yeah, my mom did triathlon and my dad was kind of just in general sporty and also did some triathlon. So they were always like, my dad was always over the chase, and they used to have this Tuesday night ride in the dark. So people would come home over to our place, park up, everyone after work, and they would all go out for 2 hours, 2 hours and a bit with lights stuck on the bike in the forest, like doing mountain biking, which is obviously carnage. And that's kind of what I wanted to get good enough to be able to do to start with. And eventually, obviously, I was good enough to go. And then as the years went on, I got faster and faster, and then I was kind of the best guy on the ride, and that's kind of where it all started. And then my dad also coached at the local club. So that's when I kind of got into road racing. I was maybe 7 or 8, something like that. And then from there, I was racing. I've been racing pretty full gas from about then all the way up until now. I was almost racing abroad by the time I was, maybe 10 years old. I was already racing in Holland, and yeah, we'd do 1 year, we'd go abroad to, it used to be, I can't remember the exact what the race was called. We called it Milo. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the town, or it's kind of like a camp a week away, and your parents drop you off, you stop in dorms, and there's like activities off the bike, and then there's the racing on the bike, but it's like a 7-day stage race. So at that age, it's super cool because you have the balance of like fun, meeting new people, different language, but also racing at like yeah, the Dutchies and the Belgians, they're so strong at that age. They're like it's obviously it's their football, it's their biggest sport. It's what people grow up wanting to do over there. Which obviously is not quite the same in the UK. It's a bit more of a niche sport. Whereas over there, yeah, you have such a depth of talent, so it's great to get over there and see kind of how you stack up. So yeah, I was there from a young age, and yeah, I've been racing ever since. I'm only what 4 5 years pro now, but 24 years old. But I've been racing. It's like my 16th year racing.
That's crazy. And you're going to be 25, May 4th, if I got it right,
Yeah,
correct?
May 4th, Star Wars Day. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, you're getting an old man already. It's funny
Oh,
because you're like, yeah, I was doing this, doing this, doing this. And then I was like 6 years old. It's like you've already had a lifetime of cycling and you were six. At
yeah,
what
yeah, for
point,
sure.
though, did you realize or your dad realize you had this exceptional talent? And then how did you really get discovered to stand out from those that would love to be there but didn't quite have that skill?
Yeah, I suppose for me, I was quite lucky in the fact that I was always very good actually from a young age. Like even when I was actually, there's a cool story of Adrian Timmis, who was a Tour de France rider. He's a guy from kind of not far from where I grew up, and he rode the Tour de France. So it's suppose he's like relatively famous in the circles of where I grew up. And he was a cyclocross race. I think my first ever race that I raced, and he came up to my parents and was like, "Yeah, I reckon like he'll ride the tour one day." So it was quite cool because he put another message on the other when I did the Tour de France for the first year last year. He was like, we kind of had a little laugh about that because obviously it was maybe, I don't know, a tongue-in-cheek comment or he said it at the time, but it's actually ended up happening. So yeah, I was good. I raced when I was under 10, under 12, like I was winning national championships. So I was very good from a young age. So actually for me, which isn't like the standard pathway, I would say. For me, the hardest thing was probably let's say, all the people that hated, like, let's call them the haters of, oh, he's only good, he's developed before everyone else. You watch next year, he won't be able to do the same. Or when the gear restrictions change, he's going to have no chance like, there was always something every year. Every year there was some reason why I was going to be no good anymore. Oh, wait until this happens, wait until this happens. And I was kind of like, always proving that point of no, there's no reason why this is going to change now. Like I am good and I will keep getting better. And so yeah, I would say that was like the hardest thing for me. And then getting picked up, I feel like again, I've had a very smooth sailing route because as much as it's been hard and I've put the work in, I've also performed to allow myself to get to where I needed to be. Um, I went into the British cycling program at 14-ish already. You're kind of in like a very large scale program with maybe 60, 80 people across the country. And then by the time we get to 16, 17, there's like 10 of you in the country or 8 of you in the country. So it's a lot more specific. And then I made the decision to go from there. It was like, do I go with the track based racing and stay with British cycling, or do I got an agent actually when I won Junior Roubaix. I won it as a first year junior. And then I had a few people contacting me and I started working with an agent. And from there, when I came into the under 23 ranks, I was actually very lucky that I had done super well as a junior. Like I'd won Roubaix, I'd come second in Game Wevelgem, I'd shown like plenty of times that I was, yeah, a good in the classic races. And I had like a few options and different teams that wanted me, and I really enjoy riding my bike out on the road. And the track has its place, but it's not the thing that gives me the most joy. And I really, really wanted to kind of make it as a pro on the road. So that was my decision to step away from the GB program and go into the road. So that's when I went to FDJ Conti. And then I was in the Conti for 3 years, and then they signed me pro. And then I was also there for quite a long time. So I've had a very, like, it's not been all over the shop. I've had a very clear pathway, which has been good. And I think that I can put a lot down to that. There's plenty of pathways to come through, but British Cycling at the time had a very good pathway that I kind of succeeded on each step. And then the same with FTJ. When I actually went there, it's for sure the best Conti team in the world. Oh, yeah, that was available at the time. Now there's a few more teams that also have very good setups, but when I went there, it was the place to be, and they did like, yeah, a really good job with me and kind of taught me the ropes of what it is to be a pro, I suppose. But I just always kind of was in this pathway and like passed, like just went from step to step to step. I never had any massive like I've come from here and it's like boom, thrown into the deep end. It was very like linear for me, which is I suppose I'm quite fortunate in that sense.
Yeah, although I think you create your own fortune as well. Because
Yeah,
if you
I
weren't working
100%.
hard and put in the work, it's very quick to get spit out the system. When I go back to when I was a kid and grew up in Bournemouth and would ride to school every day, I'd take my dad's Peugeot bike, which was a 10 speed. I couldn't sit on the saddle, I'd sit on the top tube and crash, but I'd race people to school. And then you see somebody that was elite, a guy called David Drake at that time, who would go flying by me. Here you are as a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old that love riding bikes. I'm sure you were beating a lot of people that were a lot older than you. Was that part of the excitement?
I did a lot of sports when I was younger, and I enjoy. I'm competitive, so I enjoy doing well, and I enjoy any sport. Like I'm probably one of the guys you'll meet that has the most like strings to his bow in terms of sporting things, like whether that be I don't know, skiing, squash, tennis, like skimo, snowboarding, like wakeboard, whatever it is. It's one of those things that I'll always be doing, and I'm doing other sports all the time. I love sport. Like I'm definitely, that's what keeps me, it's what I'm, I suppose, happiest doing. I enjoy the competition. I enjoy doing sport. So I did lots of sports growing up, and cycling was the one that I suppose I was the best at. And I also, I played football when I was younger, but I didn't like the parent crowd stress and kind of I found with cycling the crowd was very good. The crowd, like, there's not many. Okay, you're gonna meet people in your career in your life that you don't get on with in any field, but I do still find now that in general the type of people you meet within cycling are they're good people. They're very good people, and I enjoyed having been in that atmosphere a lot more than I did in other sport. So I think that also was a big part as to why I ended up doing cycling. And I think I enjoyed the travel and it was exciting and it was going well. And there was never I wouldn't necessarily say that I always thought I'm going to be a cyclist, but I also never thought anything different. Like it was I was luckily enough, I was pretty good at school, like academically, but mom was always like, you need always on me because she was like, you can't just be this, you can't just live in your dream world, you can't just be this, you've always got to have the backup. And I did, but I kind of always just went from path to path, step to step and ended up where I was. So yeah, I think for sure that ability, that beating people older and always, yeah, I'd always be training with people maybe a little bit older than me and beating these times and going for this. And I was always motivated there was like a chain gang every week that I remember getting to for the first time, and I was like on my absolute limit just to hold on, and I was sitting at the back. And then as the years went on, I kind of got better, and then I was the guy attacking off the front and trying to hold on. If I go back now, so these things are all, yeah, definitely motivating. I think that's what for me is maybe hardest now because when you get to elite level, like the best in the world, and again, I really noticed this at the world tour level. You've got to think that if I was one of the best five guys in the world for my age group. When you're a pro, you're racing maybe what 17, 18 years worth of age group from 19 to like 36, older sometimes, but let's just say for the sake of it, like that many years worth. So if you're in the top five in the world for that age, that still doesn't put you like 18 times five. If you're the fifth best guy, you're not fighting for the wins. You're not even special. You're not even you've got to be the best in your age, but then also you've got to beat all the other years for that 18-year span. So it's like it becomes so specific and hard. Like the level just at the very, very top in the world is different. And I think that's the hardest thing because yeah, like I said, I was good my whole life. And yeah, I would also say I'm still going relatively well now. But when you look at it in comparison to like this is the top of the top, it's so elite that it can be difficult to kind of find if you're not winning all the time, that motivation to where do your goals lie and how can you get there? Are these realistic things, or do you have to find yourself a different pathway than the sport because the level is so high? I think it's a tough one.
Well, after the Paris-Roubaix, which was really a breakout race for you, which sounds weird to say because you've had so much success, you've raced all the three Grand Tours, which would look like an education into where you're going. But during the Paris-Roubaix, you had a puncture, correct? You had a flat,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then you had to chase back for like 70 kilometers, which must have been a drain on the legs. How was that emotionally? Because again, for people that have never raced or understand, I've never done the cobblestones. How was that mentally for you, and where did you find that power to not just sit in but go for it for such a long time?
Like I said, the amount of the crowds at these races is crazy. It's that brings you a lot as well. I think you've got the eyes of the world on you, and especially at this point in the race, for me, I was the last hope of our team. I was the only one left in the running. So if I don't do anything, then it's game over for everyone. And also, yeah, I think it's one of those. I've always been a person that races to the line of every race, no matter what. I think you should always sprint to the line. The race is never over until it's over. And one of my biggest pet hates is when people get rolled on the line because they've not sprinted all the way to the line or something like that. They've celebrated too early. I have no sympathy for that kind of thing. The race is never over until it's over. Um, so for me, I suppose it's natural. I would never think of anything different. Like that's just part of it. That's just what you're doing. Like what are you going to do? It doesn't go well. You just throw your hands up and give up. I don't. It's not really in the DNA to do that. We fight until the end. And I think the only thing that I was lucky with is when that happened is the race was already so split apart that I just needed to get back to that group that I was in. Like it wasn't that there was so much fatigue in the race that yeah, of course it wasn't ideal for me to have this at this point, but I knew if I could just get back into that group, I was fighting for an okay position. And but yeah, I would say it's a weird one as well because everyone like I get a lot of good feedback and a lot of kind of publicity after the race, but for me, it's also weird because 13th for me isn't a great result, I never come back from a race and think, oh, 13th, great, I can be happy with that. Or, like I'm not, of course, yeah, it was a good performance. I know it was a very good performance and it's the top level. When we were talking earlier about how hard it is at the very top of the sport because of that funnel that comes into it. But it's, regardless, it's 13th. We're here to win bike races. Um, so yeah, for me, there's races, I don't know, like I was third in a Paris-Nice stage in a really tough stage. And for me, like a performance like that almost is more impressive for me, but I think it's just the amount of eyes and the amount of like it's because of being such a brutal race and because of the history and because of the cobbles and all of that stuff that Roubaix just gets this aura that when you perform well, which obviously it was still a very, very good performance, it just brings so much more attention to it.
You were the first Brit back, right?
Okay.
So that's representing the country and making yourself elite. But I have to ask, because again, nobody really knows when you got that puncture and you're waiting for the support to come back in and time's ticking. What's really going through a professional's mind? What was going through your mind at that point? Because every second lost is more work to put in.
Honestly, I mean, firstly, you're thinking, crap. That's the first thing that happens. You think, why me? Why today? It was going so well. But then I think you very quickly switch into where is my car? Where is what wheel can I get? Am I best getting a Shimano wheel now? Is the car closed? Can I swap bikes? Is it going to be a wheel change? Are there staff on the side of the road? Right. What's the best situation going to be now? Am I keeping my bottles on my bike? Am I taking them across? Am I bringing my Garmin across? Am I doing this? Am I like, if I stop just after this corner, does this mean that I'm going to have less time on the cobbles? Am I going to gain more or less time riding here with a puncher compared to waiting? Is this going to, all these, I suppose it's just like a load of sudden calculations to figure out what is going to be the best case scenario out of this crappy situation. I think that's what you're thinking about at the time. You're not really thinking about anything else. Or I think if you are, sometimes you see people throw the toys out the pram, and I think it's the worst thing to do. I think you've got to just be very objective about it and say, this is the situation. How do I make the best out of this situation? And just try and lose the least as possible. And then you give yourself the best chance. And at the end of the day, sometimes a race is a race and the car might be 10 minutes behind and it might be the end of the race. But at least if you give yourself the best shot at being able to do it, I think you're always trying to find the best solution. And that's kind of the same as when you're looking at when we do sprint lead out trains, when you're looking at tactics in the race. As you say, everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the face. It's the you've got to be so ready to be adaptable that, okay, this is game plan, but when we get to the final, if we've said left side of the road because the wind's coming from here, if something has happened, there's been a crash, there's been this, another team has already taken that position, we can't get it. You have to be able to damage limitation or find the best new plan of how you're then going to win from that situation.
Yeah, fascinating. What do you feel if you hadn't had that puncture and that it had the perfect day? You would have had more energy in your legs, I'm going to presume, because the fight back, the chase back, it is draining, and you still had many kilometers left to go and many cobblestones. Where do you feel if you hadn't had that, it would have changed your race day to even better?
Maybe when Van der Poel he jumps across to the group that races for the win. Maybe I have the legs to follow at this point. Because actually, that when he went, that ended up splitting the group, which was larger, into basically the groups that ended up sprinting for, let's say, 5th to 10th, 10th to 14th, 14th to 20th. That all got split on that sector, really. And I was kind of in the top two guys that didn't make it across. And then we were a few guys, and then some guys that were dropped came back to us. And then we were in a group of like 6 that ended up attacking each other and racing to the final and then sprinting for, yeah, I think 11th place maybe, because there was a 2 guys attacked just before, which was sprinting for the 9th. So I suppose that's where it is. But if I'm honest, I need to be, yeah, I suppose they got back. But where I'd like to be is making the jump at the Arenberg. I would like to be already in that group of 6 or 8 or however many there were at the front. I think it was 8. And if I can make that, then that's a real big step for me. And I was not far off there also. So I was at 2 points in the race. I was very close to be able to ride for the win. Win, like the group that's riding for the win. I'm not saying that I can just, there's a big level to wow Van der Poel and that, but if you're in that group, especially if I get there, it becomes, I don't have to do any work. I can play the card of, well, I'm the least favorite here. I can sit on and save my engine. That makes a big difference. You start making that split, then, for example, I was maybe 10 seconds off, if that, after the Arenberg of the top guys. And if I can get those 7 seconds quicker, or I can just get on after the sector, they gained like a minute and a half like this on us because no one wanted to work behind. It was headwind, and a lot of people had a teammate in front. And the guys that didn't want to work because they didn't want to drag the guys with teammates in front forward. So it ends up just being, you do all that effort across the sector and then you go, okay, slow is not the right word, but let's say relatively slow afterwards. And the guys in front are also not going super hard, but they get this time gap that we're then chasing later in the race when more people come back or people have issues and they're trying to get back to the front. So for me, if I can get myself that slight bit like that, just make that little step, that level, one more level higher, I'll be consistently racing for the wins in these races, or the group that's coming in for win. And I think that's what I need to do, is just consistently get that as many times as possible. And that would change a lot in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, for me, when going back to the question, the biggest thing is probably at that point. But I think I've got a level step to be made first, more than, I don't think I can blame it on the puncher. For me, it's I need to make that the level step up first. And yeah, and then I'll get a lot more out of these opportunities rather than just saying, okay, yeah, this puncher might have affected me slightly. I need to get that level first.
So when you're racing and you look across and there's Tade and there's Wout van Aert and all the different riders, does that excite you or does it make you nervous?
Neither, if I'm honest. I've never really been bothered by what other people are doing. Same when people say idols and this stuff. I mean, I have a lot of people I respect, and I wouldn't say copy what they do, but I take from what they do. And I think this person is got their stuff together. Like that's really good what they do. I'll nick that idea. I'll nick this. But I never look at someone and think, oh, like that's scary, or I won't be able to race this person, or if he's coming next to me into the corner, I don't care who it is. I'm not moving. I'm not like you don't own this road any more than I do. Like it's for me, it's people can talk about respecting the peloton and what, but for me, the biggest respect is these people winning because they deserve to win, and they do. But if you're kind of giving up before you start, and oh yeah, it's this guy, he's probably going to win anyway, like you should give him the space on the road. It's not how it works. If you want to make his life any easier, if he really deserves to win, he'll win it having fought for it properly. So for me, in that sense, I don't get nervous. It doesn't anything like that. I suppose maybe the only thing it is when I'm coming out of a sector and I'm like, right, I've come out of the sector Avelwy before Arenberg, and I'm like, okay, there's 10 of us. I'm here with Van der Poel, Wout, Pedersen, like me, Pithy, like there's only top guys there. I'm like, whoa, this feels good. Like I'm in with the big boys now. Like I'm in a race. Let's go. Apart from that, that's all it gives me.
Even more than that, you are one of the big boys at that point because you can't deny.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that. So this brings me on something really, important mindset. You obviously have a killer championship mindset because otherwise you would be intimidated or not put yourself in that same crowd. But how much of the race, you're racing for over 5 hours?
Mm.
How much of that 5 hours are you mentally focused? Is there a time you can relax off? And how much
Nah,
of the performance is mindset?
for me, I think, we spoke earlier about how in the last 5 years, the sport's gone up crazy level. And from what I understand, the biggest thing that has changed is this part of it is that before there would be periods where, okay, you fight for the breakaway, that takes 40 minutes, half an hour to go. Everyone sits down, one team takes the lead, everyone starts riding. There's a few bit of people lose, have mechanicals, crash. It's a bit of a fight for the positions, but it's all together. You try and survive Arenberg. Okay, then the race kind of starts happening. Whereas now, there is no time that you can switch off because the breakaway didn't go until before the sectors. There was no breakaway. So you've got this consistent, there's been splits in Roubaix in the last couple of years at the start, big splits. There was nearly one this year. If you can not end your race, but you can severely hamper your chances if you mess up in this part of the race. Also, there's the skill level of people that if you leave, sometimes I'm going down a road, we're doing 80k an hour, and I'm thinking, what I'm doing now is stupid because if I want to leave a margin of error in front of me, but if I leave any margin of error, and we can be talking like centimeter, like 5-10 centimeters more off the back of a wheel, just enough where if something happens, I've got the 0.1 of a second to react. If I give that, someone else or another two people will see that weakness and attack it and go straight into that position. And I'll lose within 3 seconds. You can lose 60 positions like that. And in a race like Roubaix, you can't be taking that risk because it's so much on positioning that now you never know at what point the race is going to go. And to be in a good position, it's like the same at the Tour de France. There's a sprint stage and there's a tight point at 40 kilometers to go. At 110 kilometers to go, we're already fighting for that point at 40 kilometers to go. So if you lose out at any point in that 70 kilometers in between, it's going to be nigh impossible to move up. And then that can change because the level's so close. That changes everything. So I think that's where now it's a lot harder is the mental side of things. Is before there was more on and off periods. Now, especially in these classic races, you have to be focused the whole 5 hours. And that's I wouldn't say it's harder than the physical side, but in a way it is because it's not natural, I suppose, to be that switched on for that length of time while physically performing at your maximal capacity as well.
So for young riders listening to this, how would you describe, how do you train for that endurance? Because to look at 5 hours of mental focus and yet you're out training, How do you develop that, Lewis?
Yeah, good question. And probably something we as a group of cyclists at the World Tour are also probably trying to figure out. I don't think anyone knows quite yet. I think some people have it more than others, like naturally, but I believe that if we say, okay, someone's naturally good at doing this, where does that come from? For me, this comes from years of knowing the basics of if you are so, let's say you are in like incredible bike handler. Tactically, you don't have to, you've done years and years, so you've got, you know, if this happens, I will do this. If the bunch is swaying this way, it will normally open up here. If there's a left-hand corner into this, it's better to be on this side of the road. All of these things, if these are ingrained into your brain and their muscle memory, I think that makes it a lot easier where you have the right habits from the start. So I think it has to become something where you it's so drilled in the right habits of you've got to keep as soon as there's a gap, you've got to put your front wheel into that gap. As soon as there's like if there's a tight section come up, you know you need to be in the top how many positions. If you're third line back, but there's 15 people across the road, you're in 50th position. That's not close enough to the front to be. At what points do you need to be? These things that where when you then get into the race, it's second nature and you're not thinking about or messing up because when you're performing at your limit it has to be second nature. It has to just be like an extension of yourself. So I think, can you necessarily train for the mental concentration? I don't know. I think it's pretty difficult. I think it's more about having the foundations in where and then you just have to want it, I suppose. Because there's sometimes races when people, it's like you know what you need to do, and it's so hard to still do it. Like but it also happens to everyone. Like, there's plenty of times where I'm like, I knew what I needed to do, but I also I wasn't able to do it at that time. And I think maybe that's when they both come in. Like, there's a balance between the physical and the mental side as well, because if you're a little bit physically better, it gives you that if you're less on the limit, it gives you that little bit more margin for error or at least you can think clearer. So I think someone like me that, okay, I know I've spent this podcast saying that, okay, I've been very lucky and I've been in a good position. I was also never a lot better than anyone. Like I've always done very well, but I've never had it easy. I've always had a real good competition throughout my whole career. And it's not been the fact of when I was younger, I was winning everything. I managed to actually pull it out on the big days, but I wasn't just like winning everything, if that makes sense. So I think I've always had to learn how to really win on the limit and get the most out of myself. So yeah, I think that's probably the best way I could say to training is just the years of experience of putting it into practice, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like if you're always looking from the start line to the finish line for the best opportunity and not allowing yourself to drop off for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, because somebody else may still be engaged, if
Mm.
you can stay turned on through every moment, even if it feels like it's relaxed, then maybe that's a way to strengthen that.
Yeah, and I think it's to not, of course, enjoy the racing, but it's you've got to go in and think, right, I'm not here to kind of soak this in. I'm here to perform. Like kind of think about I think you just have to kind of start it like you're going into war. You really have to, you're a fighter for this 5 hours and allow yourself. Maybe that means you have to have more time off. Like for me, I've realized that I actually need now. I've trained less, I'd say, this year than other years. And that has allowed me less is less the right word, more specific, where I've allowed myself when I'm coming into the races, I'm arriving in physical and mental, like with physical and mental capacity to do what I need to do. Whereas in the past, I've maybe arrived with the physical capacity, but the mental a little bit exhaustion, where exhaustion might be a strong point, but let's just say not 100%. Even if you're 95%, that isn't good enough in especially the classics races. So yeah, for me, I think it's arriving in that state where you can say, okay, I've got 5 hours in me, full gas, and then I can give myself 4 days where I'm easy and recovering and I'm enjoying life because I've put it all into that rather than being like, okay, I can do today, but I'm 60% in and I'll try and focus on the key points. That might work sometimes if you're lucky, but luck isn't always on your side. And if you want to have consistent opportunity and you don't want to be flick yourself out of being in a bad position, you have to be there the whole time.
Yeah, you said earlier, Mike Tyson's comment, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're always looking, if someone's about to punch me, can I divert the punch, which in a race would be they've broken and I wasn't ready to go and now I've missed it? Or
Yeah.
is there the opportunity for me to throw the punch? But you bring up a great point, recovery. Because with the change in racing and the intensity that you talk about, recovery has to be a more important factor now than maybe 20 years ago when you weren't racing as much. How much of your training is the recovery focus?
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think it's something that's also even throughout my career, I've had to become more aware of. And it's also something, it's also hard to battle with. Like, I'm currently trying to figure out what my program's going to be for the rest of the year, or for at least the next second part of the year. And of course, I want to race. I'm a racer. I love racing. And it's a hard battle between what I want to do, what our DSs want me to do, and what my coach wants me to do. Because my coach knows that you can't just race yourself into the group. You can't just race and race and race. Like, of course, I'd be good. Of course, I'd be good, but I wouldn't be great. And if I do okay at everything, what happens if I just I never hit that top level? And the way the sport is now, you really need to hit. I think you need to be a bit more focused and hit specific goals and hold for a certain amount of time and really go for these 100%. Whereas it's also hard to deal with because as a racer, you want to be able to, you want to have as many opportunities as possible. You want to be out there racing. So it's definitely a tough balance to be had. Yeah, I I'm also learning on that aspect. So I think it's something that I'll hopefully figure out and I will try different approaches each year and we'll see end up like what ends up being best for me, whether that be physically, mentally, and how it all works out. Because there's also the fact of just because you go well in a race doesn't necessarily mean that you had the best preparation into it and you're physically on your best day. So it's like you've always got to take in so many factors when you're analyzing what happened in a year and why you did well at a certain period, I think.
What is your goal?
Good question. Again, something that this is very well timed podcast. Something I've been, I suppose, not battling with, like trying to figure out myself because I'm in a very fortunate position where this is my job and I get to ride a bike. Obviously, I did this my whole life up until this point without it being my job. I did it because I loved it and I wanted to, I don't know, try and get the best I could and keep winning races. And now at a point where it is my job, but there's plenty of pathways within this job, like we spoke about earlier. Is that being one of the best lead out men in the world? Is that being someone that gets loads of points throughout a year by hitting loads of top fives, top tens in races? Is that I want to win a certain level of race? I've won point one and point pro races, but my best result is a third in a world tour race. So is it that I want to win this? Is it nationals? Do I want to go to the Olympics? Do I want to what is my goal? I think it's also balancing that with realizing that I want to enjoy this life to the fullest as well. And how do I've also got to live in the present and being like now is when you want to be happy. I don't want to be chasing something for my whole life. So it's a tough one of what actually is my goal. And I think I'm currently trying to figure out by trying different things, what is it that makes me happy on the bike? But I think it does always come back to I love winning and I love racing and I love trying to be at the best of what I can do. Um, I want not underestimated point is I love racing in the biggest races where I it's the most eyes, the most crowd, the most people going crazy. It's like the biggest entertainment. This is also what I enjoy doing. Um, so yeah, I just want to I suppose feeling like I'm getting the most out of myself in the career and not falling into a trap of not performing to what I was physically possibly capable of doing, I think. Is that and then yeah, I want to enjoy it and have a good time along the way. I want to be going to races with a great group of people and being I think that mental side as well we've talked about. I think a lot of people are maybe too serious in the fact of like for me, I'm always going to be, if you put me in a race situation in the final, there's no part of me that's never ever going to be not motivated enough to do exactly what I need to do into that final. But you can spend a week before stressing about it. And I think that's where that's where for me you lose a lot of mental energy. If you come in fresh and you're having a great time, and if you perform to your best, which is probably going to happen if you're mentally happy and enjoying the period, like that's great. And if you don't, you're also having a great time. It's not because of this that you're not performing, just because you're having a great time and you're laughing around the dinner table and you're not just sat in your bed with your legs up, like meditating, like it's that's not going to be the difference between winning or losing. So I think that's where you can come away, and that's where I want to be as well. I want to be going to all the races and enjoying my time.
What stands out, you've used the word more than anybody I've ever interviewed. The two words happy and love.
Mm.
Use those, and it really stands out that you're not a slave to the sport, you're not a slave to a mission that, and many of us have been there where you think if I get to this point, then I'll be happy the rest of my life. And the reality is you're not, because you get there and it's the end of what? What did you actually achieve? So I love that you use those words. There's something you said earlier that when you were younger and you called them the haters that said, Lewis won't be here next year. He's already peaked. He developed early. How much of your mental strength and resilience came from at such a young age facing those haters and then constantly proving them wrong that now taps into this confidence and peace that you have to do your best?
It didn't massively bother me, but like if it's still in my head now, it was a long time ago. It must have, it must have actually when I think about it. And I suppose the fact that I had that my whole life meant that maybe this is why I'm a little bit kind of emotionally dull to that now, because I've had to deal with it my whole life, and I realize it's not what matters to me what they think. It's about what I'm actually doing. And yeah, so maybe I don't really know. And I think I agree massively with what you're saying. I think what it's a lot of people realize this too late um in their careers, or the amount of people that have come to me, I know, like older pros, and they go, oh, I wish I'd enjoyed my career a bit more. I'm a bit lost now. This was the only thing I ever had. Like I don't know who I am, or lots of people have issues with it. And I think there's not many people that kind of get that balance right and understand that earlier in their lives. And I feel pretty fortunate to be able to, I feel like be in that situation. Um, and I suppose for me, I hope more people can end up being like that, because a lot of stuff can happen, as we were chatting earlier. A lot of unexpected things can happen in life. And as much as this sport is obviously a massive part of my life, and it's given me everything, yeah, it's allowed me to live the life that I do. It can also all end tomorrow. So you don't want to have that situation where you'd have regrets after that. And I think there's plenty of people also that are just unfortunately not good enough to make it. But I hope that these people had an absolute whale of a time trying to make it, and don't finish that period of their lives going, ah, oh, I really wish I hadn't spent 7 years trying to do that. They go, well, I spent 7 years trying to do that. I didn't manage to do it, but bloody hell, I had a great time, and the experiences that brought with me. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that.
Great perspective. This year, you got the Tour de France coming up, the most watched sporting event in the world. But you talked about the crowd. What's it like when you're going up a climb or the crowd's all, surging in on you? How does that feel? Is it sometimes dangerous for you? Because it looks like it when I'm watching. I've been to the Tour de France, I stood on the Alpe d'Huez, or is it something that does inspire you?
For me, yeah, it can be dangerous, but if I'm honest, I think that's cool. I mean, there's a balance to be had with it, but if you start trying to reduce this, I feel like that's what makes the sport. That's what makes the sport incredible. No, why is football such a crazy sport? It's the fans. Imagine you take the fans away from it. It's not the same. So for me, I think anything we can do to have more races like this and more fans, crazy fans, the better. And yeah, it's for sure it's inspiring for me. As I said, sometimes I mess up. In Flanders, I was following an attack that was probably a bit too hard, a bit too early, a bit too aggressive for the point in the race. But I was thinking, this noise, I can only do one. There's only one mode here. It's full gas. I can't be getting dropped at this point in this in front of this many people. I love it. I think that's what makes it. It just makes it a whole spectacle. It makes it a sport that's inspiring and fun to be a part of. I think if I was a kid watching cycling, as I said, I didn't watch a lot of cycling when I was younger, and I was never a massive fan, I suppose, of the sport before I came into it. Um, but I imagine that if there's more races with the vibe, or it's more known about the crazy atmosphere of Tour of Flanders or the Tour de France, that only brings in more and more people as fans, and it brings more and more opinions and more people and more spotlight, and that's what I think makes it so special, I suppose.
There's two questions. Is there anything that somebody's ever shouted at you in the race that you've heard? Because we don't know. There's so much noise. I don't even know whether you hear what's being said. Is there something that inspires you? Like, let's just say you're in the Tour de France, you're coming into the last 3 kilometers, and you hear someone shout something and it inspires you. Is there that? And then when your mum and dad are there, does it make you more nervous or are you relaxed? Because I know when I was performing on stage with Lloyd Webber, when my mum was in the audience, I was more nervous than when Michael Jackson came to watch us. Or when I was acting opposite Will Ferrell, I was more nervous that my mum was on the set. So, is there something that
Uh,
inspires you and your
I
parents?
inspire no, I mean often my mum goes, "Did you hear me?" And I'm like, no, unfortunately not. I heard an absolute wall of noise and I could not pick out one voice from it, unfortunately. But um no, I don't get any more nervous, I don't think. I think if anything, the more people I know that are watching, the more, we were talking earlier of like, oh, okay, that wheel, there's that slight gap. I need to be tense, like I need to be on it. I need to be filling there. No, as soon as the space I move, I'm doing this. I'm thinking. I'm focused. I suppose it reinforces the ability to do that because I don't want to come back and go, oh yeah, I just had the legs, but didn't like. I switched off. Sorry. Like, kind of, I want to be able to put myself in the best chance to be able to, I suppose, experience if they're there. It's even cooler, if you actually do get a nice result or get something out of it. It's a super nice thing. Like my nan and granddad were there when I won Junior Roubaix. I know it's only Junior Roubaix, but I think that's something that will stay with them for the rest of their lives, and it will also stay with me for the rest of my life. So I'd say there's that side of things, and then other people that shout. I wouldn't say I've had anything that inspiring, to be honest. I think it's more. It's sometimes I have things that annoy me. Like I'll be having a bad day in the mountains trying to fight for the time cut, and I've got my Garmin that tells me 4 kilometers to the top, and I'll have someone go, like the top's 500 meters away, and I'm like, well, I know it's not. I've got my Garmin here. It tells me 4K. Why don't you shut up? Like,
That's
uh,
it. Do you have a voice
but
in your head then, Lewis? Do you have a voice in your head that says something to you when the time gets tough?
you know what? It's something I'm actually trying to do is have these things where sometimes if you're falling into a trap of maybe you're switching off a little bit, or again, when I say switching off, it's an exaggeration of the word. You're not switching off. You're just not. You're functioning at 98% instead of 100%. And when I can sometimes feel that happening, and I'm trying to find ways of how do I switch myself out of that and straight into where I need to be again. Because I can feel it happening sometimes, but sometimes it's like you don't know how. You've got to figure out a way of how you get your body to, or your mind to kind of, yeah, slap yourself around the face and get back into where you need to be. And it's a lot easier said than done, and it's something that I'm trying to figure out ways of doing. For example, at Roubaix, like we got to the point where everyone's so on the limit, and I know I kind of come into this protection mode almost, like help, like when you've gone so hard for so long and you get into this point, you almost, your body doesn't want to do any more damage to itself. But you've got to kind of, for me, it's like I've got to find a way to switch out of that and of being like the one getting attacked and just trying to like survive, to being, oh, everyone's destroyed right now. I need to be like, at what point can I make the next move to kind of get that separation? And how am I going to do that with the terrain? And it's being able to do that in the race, which is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, that's next level, or ultimate level mindset, really. And there's many protocols that I work with, whether it's breath work. I've worked with some incredible leaders in performance that help you at that critical moment to find, because as Chris Carmichael said, everyone's hurting the same. It's who can last longest. But that comes down to, again, the mindset and the way you treat yourself. There was a Newbury Park mountain bike varsity team. It's a special team out here. They're going to the nationals. And I said I was going to be speaking with you. And a couple of the kids reached out and coaches and said, I'd love to ask Lewis's, experience, what advice he'd give. Can I go ahead and ask you a couple of questions?
Go on.
Yeah, so this came from Massimo Sakolowski. He's 14 years old. And he said, when you were my age, he goes, what would you tell yourself to do more or less of to get where you are now?
Honestly, as I said, I think I explained, I think I had a very, I was doing the right things at the right time. The only thing I would say at 14 is I had not figured out yet that balance of what we were talking about earlier of enjoying it enough. I was too focused, if I'm honest. And I don't mean that you shouldn't be focused and you shouldn't care a lot about the sport and you shouldn't be doing all the things correctly. I just mean that it shouldn't be that your whole life is determined, your whole happiness is determined by your sport at that age. And for me, it was. I was so much more serious and affected by sport at that age than I am now. And I remember just like shivering in the car before a race because I was so nervous. Like just literally like sat there. I remember complaining, then thinking it was absolutely outrageous that I had to walk 5-10 minutes to the canteen to get food because I can't be walking. I'm a cyclist. Like I need to be recovering before the race. Like things like that. At 14, it's stupid. It's a 10-minute walk for God's sake. But I was that, and it did. Like I had great times. I had good race results, but I was severely affected by yeah, I was my mood would be very dependent on the bike. And I think I didn't have enough balance at that point in time. I was super yeah, guided by the sport and I was way too seriously, I think you should still be serious. I don't want to say don't be serious about it. You've got to be serious. But it's just think about the levels of it. And if you're thinking, is this controlling every single thing that I do? I think then you need to, yeah, you've got hopefully 50, 60, 70 years of riding a bike. You don't want to have to stop at a certain age and think, I don't want to see a bike ever again in my life. And I think that is maybe if I hadn't, or what, maybe not even me, but just what I've seen a lot of people do.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And again, that goes back to the word you use, love. You got to love what you do. I was out on a bike ride the other morning and it was just so relaxed. I'm like, I love riding a bike. And if you don't love it, if you're a slave to it, you will,
Yeah.
hit that peak. Coach Jack Nosco, great guy out here, Lewis, who leads so many kids. He's leading the team for nationals right now. But he said, what did nutrition or when did nutrition really start to be important for you? And how do you keep from burning out?
Yeah, I think, well, the burning out part, I think, is pretty much already explained in everything else we've already been talking about. I think that key of everything we've just been over is that is exactly how I would be burning out. And I think also one thing to know, to gauge for me, is if you're someone that has a bit of time off the bike to reset and just feels guilty the whole time or feels like, oh no, I'm losing fit, like, is stressing about it. For me, that's you're at a point where, and again, this is probably something very common that happens. So I wouldn't say you want to freak out if this is you. But for me, if you're at a point where you feel like you can't switch off, even when it's the time to be switched, it's the time to switch off to stop yourself burning out, then you need to, think about what can I do to maybe balance a little bit out my life, I suppose. And then what was the other part of the question? Sorry, before I
Yeah, no, it's really how do you keep from burning out, which is kind of what you said. You
yeah, but then what was the start of it?
when did nutrition really start to
Yeah,
be
nutrition.
important to you?
Yeah, so nutrition was honestly, I've always eaten well from a young age. I suppose when I got older, I learned more about nutrition, but I've always eaten just very clean, good food. I'm not someone that craves pretty rubbish food, if I'm honest. I don't, for me, I'm having time off now and I eat exactly the same. I enjoy homemade, fresh ingredients, good food. I think that's important. And then just, I've always fueled, I suppose, pretty well on the bike. I'm a big eater. So I was never someone that kind of was roped into these low carb, you've got to be starving yourself, like in the old school cycling. It was never something that was a part of my life, so I've never really struggled with any of that. And then I suppose I learned a bit more over the years through them being in professional setups. But if I'm honest, the it's pretty simple. Eat well, give yourself enough carb to race. If you want to be having solid amount of carbs when you're doing intense rides. You don't have to be as, let's say, you don't have to be having over 100 gram an hour in training, but you also want to make sure if you're doing over hour and a half, you want to be having enough fuel to keep you going, especially if you're doing intense efforts in those periods. So yeah, nutrition wise, it's always been important. It's never, I suppose, maybe I've had times when I became a pro where we'd start talking about weight or whatever a little bit more, but if I'm honest, it's always been pretty. We've done that in certain periods, more of an understanding for me of like, this is how much your body needs to recover. This is what this looks like. And we do this for a couple of weeks, month period at a time. And then that's kind of ingrained. And I know that it's not like for me, I'm someone that's on it every single day. It's more of a getting into the right habits of nutrition, I think.
Yeah, because there's so many fads that come out, and there is no one thing I think that fits everybody. And then suddenly it's a sales ploy to say if you do this, you'll get better. And then you find out 6 months later it actually made you worse.
Yeah.
Which leads into the last question from Coach Mark Gilliam. He said, what's your favorite food the night before a race? What do you do the morning of? What do you take during? And then after a big ride, after Paris-Roubaix, you're exhausted. I saw you collapsed on the ground, just recovering, understandably. What do you then do as well?
I actually like we have really good chefs, if I'm honest. I'm pretty happy to switch it up. I don't always have the same. I mean, for me, rice pasta is pretty similar. They normally do a pretty good dessert the day before the race as well. I like to smash through quite a bit of dessert. I'm a bit of a granola cereal man as well. I like to smash through a bit of that if I'm carb loading the day before a race. There's nothing too crazy, if I'm honest. I Rice pudding I've actually been enjoying. We do like this sweet rice, basically rice pudding. Been having that, pancakes in the morning. I used to be a massive porridge man, and I've started to become a bit more liking something a little lighter in the morning. I don't know why that's changed. I always loved the feeling of having like a heavy stomach, which wouldn't be great for running, but I've never really had an issue on the bike. Now I'm starting to enjoy having, yeah, like the rice, which is you don't need as much volume because it's so carb dense. Um, During the ride, I'm having between 100, gram an hour, depending on the race, but pretty consistent like that. And then afterwards, I mean, Roubaix is a bit different. I've got nothing else coming up after. I kind of just having whatever I feel like having. Normally, I actually before was too eating too much. Like I was kind of being like, oh, I was super hard race and feeling fatigued, and then just using fatigue as a cue for eating a lot. And this, I think because I'm such a big eater anyway, I didn't need to have 4 meals after my race and a protein shake and 2 bowls of cereal and um, and yeah, I don't need to be doing all of that. So for me, it's just been more. Roubaix again is a different one. I can't even remember what I had after Roubaix. Maybe they did us some
So long
nice stuff.
ago, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it's if I'm honest, I was pretty. I think mom cooked up something. So my mom and dad were out watching the race. So they took me home. So I didn't have much like travel or I wasn't with the team afterwards. I literally just took the bike, walked over there in the motorhome, and I think mom cooked up some food and that was about that. Traveled back the next day. So yeah, no, for me but within the other races, nutrition after the race has just changed a little bit more. I suppose was a little bit more weighed out for this is the amount you need because I was over indulging after races on just using fatigue as a I'm going to eat until I feel no more fatigue.
I'm going to put you under more pressure now than you've ever been in a bike race.
Hmm.
Who's the better chef? Your pros or your mum? Which food comes better?
Oh, by far the chef. Mom is not a great chef.
I guess that wasn't more pressure. If I was in there, I'd have to say my mum, but
Nah,
it
nah. Mom's not bad. I mean, she's not great. She cooks up all right food. It's not terrible. But me and my brother do all the cooking at home. Like
that's
now,
awesome.
yeah. So I mean, more just be not because mom wouldn't cook, just because we enjoy our food more.
Do,
We love doing stuff from scratch and good food. I think I am a bit of a foodie, so
do you ever go into the kitchen and watch the chefs making or learn from them, get tips, or is it
I like to actually. Yeah, I do like to. Yeah, I do often pick their brains about stuff. So
that's real life? Well, look, I know you got to go. Your girlfriend's out racing a triathlon, wishing her the best as well. But I do have a couple of quick questions if I could ask, just quick rapid fire. The
let's go.
first one, what's the hardest sector in the Paris-Roubaix that you find?
Arenberg, easy. Arenberg,
What's the highest watts you remember hitting during the race?
1400 and something probably.
Really?
1450 normally in a race. Yeah.
Do you know what your max wattage is?
1600 for me, but I don't hit that very often. Normally after the off season when I'm nice and chunky and fresh.
What was the most painful moment?
I actually didn't have that many painful. Like it was more just the pain got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse as the day went on, because the cobbles. It's just like by the time you hit those last couple of sectors, it's your body. You don't want to see another cobble again. It's just that your body's so fatigued and you know you still got worse to come. So that's I suppose, yeah, maybe before Carrefour de Lab or something like this. Yeah, something like that. It's you've got some rough sectors coming up and your body's kind of at the point where it's like I need no more cobbles now. I'm hurting.
So was the physical pain worse than the mental pain when you saw that there was that little break that went away and no one was pulling? Which was the more painful?
That kind of stuff happens all the time. I'm pretty used to it in bike races now. It's more, as I said, it's more the mental thing of, okay, I know I've got that step up to make. This is the situation now in the race. I try and make the best out of this situation, but that's maybe the front of the race going. So yeah, it's crap, but
So what's one change you would have made during the race if there's one?
actually I wouldn't have punctured maybe, and maybe I would have been on Van der Poel's wheel when he made that attack. But honestly, I rode a very good race. I can't be. It was really my physical abilities was the only thing that was stopping me getting better.
So last one of this quick fire. When are you winning this race? When are you winning the Paris-Roubaix? I know you're Britain's without a doubt number one. Um,
Or
fight for it.
I reckon I need another 3 or 4 more years to be in the running to have an opportunity to win it. I reckon that's when I'll be physically at my peak. And I've maybe got 4 or 5 attempts to win it after that.
That's brilliant. So I have to say this before we end. Tell me about your Auntie Joe. I went to college with her. If I didn't mention her, apart from the fact I went to college with her, she might never talk to me again.
Yeah, it's crazy actually. We had dinner with her and her son, husband, and girlfriend actually the other day. They came round. It was after Roubaix. I went back to the UK and I was with Natasha and we kind of did a trying to meet as much of the family as I could in the 3 or 3.5 days I was back home. So yeah, Joe's always in great spirits and loves to keep up with what's going on, and she's always a good laugh. So it's nice to have that. But yeah, I couldn't believe that when you sent me the message, you're like, I know Joe. I was like, how?
Yeah, it's such a small world because here I am growing up in Bournemouth, going to Lane Theatre Arts in Epsom, moving out to Los Angeles and pursuing my career. And she's always been great, such a lovely lady. But she did tell me your talent comes directly from her. She didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me that, but I know that I had to throw that in there.
Sounds like something she'd say.
Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you all day, and I know you've got, things that you need to get on and do. Maybe we'll do another one later on. I'd love to have you back on here when we get questions from other people coming in. But there's only one thing, your biggest destination is to come and stay with me in Los Angeles. I'll take you out on the rides. All the pro teams come and do. Bring your girlfriend out. And
Ah,
we have the most
you,
incredible ride
you know,
that you
you've
could
said that on the podcast, and I am someone that takes people up on these things. So
No, it'd be great. We got a master guest bedroom, and honestly, the roads out here, you'll be in heaven training. This is where a lot of the
I've
teams
heard good
come.
things, actually. I have heard good things, yeah.
And 2028, last thing, Olympics, Los Angeles. You going to be there?
I will do my best. I don't know, it's pretty hard, but maybe it's not the best course for me, but we'll see. We'll see. I will be in the running to be there. It's a goal for me to try and be there, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll
It's not
come out,
easy.
ride the course. I'll take you around it. I'll actually lead you out at about 20 miles an hour if you can keep up.
Sounds good.
Lewis, thanks so
Awesome.
much for your time, mate.
Thank you
Brilliant.
very much.
Good luck with everything. Bye
Cheers.
bye.